We are live. Let that roll. Welcome back to the Demand Better podcast, guys. All right, Bo, enough with your she blinded me with science. What? She blinded me with science.
All right.
Welcome back. Welcome back to the Demand Better podcast. I am your host today. I'm Corona. I'm coming to you from New York City. Kind of 50-ish today, not bad. And I have the great, infamous Dr. Physio, Bo Babenko, coming in from
Superior, Colorado.
How you doing, Bo?
I'm good, man. I don't know why I'm infamous. I'm not sure what I'm infamous for.
Just wanted to use it. Just felt good. It felt good. It just rolled off the tongue today. Infamous.
You do know what the definition of that is, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Means I did something very bad. I don't know what I did that was so bad.
You have done things that were bad, but we didn't have phones then.
I thought that was in the vault.
All right, let's get serious, but it was in the vault. And the keyword.
Now it's out.
It's the infamous stuff. So tonight we're gonna talk about research and how you should demand better from your research. That's kind of let's first define the definition of evidence-based practice, which I want to give you the definition. Let me get my little paper.
Before you do that, we talked about this, man. I thought we had a plan. You're deviating from the plan, my friend.
Go ahead.
First thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about our mission of why we want to talk about this. So tell everyone about our mission.
You know what? I did totally forget that, Bo. I'm so sorry because I don't have it written down. Hey, we are here to give you guys a resource. This is a destination for you guys to actually be able to get information that you can take with you that we know will help you going forward. How would you like to add anything into that, Dr. Bo?
Yeah, especially about this topic. You know, I think every episode we want to reiterate the fact that we're trying to be a consumer's guide, Kelly Blue Book, or whatever you want to call it, consumer reports. So the same way we do that for other areas in health and fitness, there's a huge wild west right now. So when it comes to research, and this is the age of misinformation, some might say, we're going to look back on this stuff and be like, why couldn't they just say, like, you know, here's the validity of this statement, you know, and why can't we have a nuanced conversation about some of these things versus people just making crazy claims? Hey guys, if you do keto, you're going to lose 10 pounds in 10 days. And that I'm just making sure y'all know that is not an accurate statement.
And if you listened to our last podcast, you would have seen that we would discuss during the Christmas one of why your resolutions don't work, or all those crazy claims that keep coming out and out and out. And some people buy the product. It's kind of an insane thing to do. But go ahead, Bo. You can finish that up with what you were saying.
I do want to correct you again. Our last episode, we had 2 episodes in between that one since then with Erin Grace Clark, where we explore her journey and we talk about we did a bit of a dive into racial components and cultural components to fitness. So y'all check that out. But I'm going to swing it back to today's topic, research. A lot of misinformation. Again, what does it mean when you see a headline that says eggs are bad for you or red meat causes cancer?
Well, let's stop. Let's get the thesis down. So we've discussed this already. So what we're looking at is the definition of evidence-based practice is a process in which the practitioner combines well-researched interventions with clinical experience, ethics, client preferences, and culture to guide and inform the delivery of treatments and services. We even broke that down a little bit further, where we said 1/3 of this is research, 1/3 of this is clinician experience, and 1/3 of this is client expectation, which, Bo, when we talked about this, you know damn well I said to you, never even thought of it, never even put that into my whole thought process. The point of why I'm saying all this stuff to you is to inform you guys, listen, research is complicated. It's not black and white. It's not this cut and dry. There's also limitations to research. So with that being said, Bo, why don't you tell us about your triad concept when it comes to this?
Well, I can't take credit for it as much as I'd love to. In the physical therapy space and the healthcare space, there's this model is attributed to Sackett et al. Et al. Usually means all the other authors, and there's too many to list. But Sackett is the primary author who came up with this concept, so we'll give them a little bit of credit. So evidence-based practice again is this triad where only 1/3, and so when actually, and I'm gonna not call you out, but again, this is a common thing where I asked our buddy here, David Corona, how he goes about researching something, and he said he'd go to NSCA and look up a study and say, well, what's a better exercise for glute development? Is it deadlifts, hex bar, leg press, all these different ways? And again, I've seen these studies, and we've looked at it, and so at the end of the day, it's great if we can come up and have a consensus and say the research is very clear about X, or it's predominantly strong about the fact that, again, a barbell deadlift is the best way to develop your gluteus maximus muscles. And then we would have to go further with that and say, what populations was that done in? Was it done in 20-year-olds? And Corona's here. We're not going to say his age, but he's at least double 20 years old. And so
rude.
So that study might not apply to him as much, or a client that he's working with. So it's important that we start to understand these concepts when it comes to how we interpret these claims that are out there. Again, especially on social media, where everybody claims to be an expert, movement expert, nutrition expert. So coming back to it, the research is it's important that we understand it to some extent, and it's at least 1/3 of this stool, the triangle, the triad. But again, the clinician experience. So again, I could say I got my doctorate in physical therapy in 2008. I was working with clients on the fitness side since at least college, when I was there as a trainer, athletic trainer, personal trainer, as an EMT. So I've seen a lot of things with humans on the football team when I was there. Those all kind of counted because I already was in that mindset of like, how do we think about this from a scientific perspective? So the clinician experience for me, I'm going to say goes back to, I'm going to say at least 2001. So I'm at 21 years or so. That is scary to say, of experience. And again, I talk about, since getting my doctorate, I can say I've assessed thousands of athletes and humans movement. Okay. So that clinician experience needs to be factored in when we're talking about, when I'm to the next person I see and I say, oh, you have low back pain and it's presenting this way. I've seen hundreds of people present that way. And now I can talk to that. And again, there's the research side too. Well, technically research says extension based, can kind of, you're intolerant this way. And some of the research says, again, getting stronger with these XYZ. Again, and this is where I'm kind of, you're being the host, man. So pull me back when I start going.
I'm gonna stop you there because I was gonna let you kind of finish the sentence and the thought. Again, I want to just to reach out to our listeners. Listen, the clinician has to be good, and when you're dealing with these things, because Bo is a very well-rounded person in this area, but the clinician experience in this situation with Dr. Bo is very precise, and I trust it. Now, with that being said, let's talk about let's get in a little bit more into client expectation, Bo.
Yeah.
Because I think if we go into client expectation, which is something I did not think about when you're thinking about evidence-based research, I thought more about the research and the clinician, but I did not think about the expectation of the client. Go ahead and give us a little bit of that.
So on that topic specifically, I'm going to dive into the fact of pain research. So coming from a physical therapy perspective is a good example of I think this huge topic, because when it comes to, again, all the research is mixed. All right. As a physical therapist and again, I'm guessing anybody listening out there has either experienced low back pain or dealt with somebody very close to them who's had some serious low back pain, because over 85 to 90% of us will experience some significant disability at some point of our lives from low back pain. So the client experience is huge. There, again, we talked last episode with Aaron about cultural implications on fitness. The same thing about pain. And we even touched on the fact that there's this perception of pain in the Black community from the healthcare space where they're saying, oh, I think you can handle more pain than you even, like, there's
absolutely
this dismissive
yes,
thing.
Absolutely.
So without going too far down that rabbit hole, again, it comes back to like, we have to meet the client where they're at, and we have to communicate. And that's a huge thing of recently client-centered care or patient-centered care in the healthcare space has been a huge concept. So I have to say, David, what have you tried? David, what has worked and what hasn't worked? What are you scared of? What's realistic to you for me to say, hey, you should go swim, but you live in on the Upper East Side to find a pool? Or again, I know you hate running. So for me to be like, well, running is the best thing. You should go run. And you have this aversion to running. So there's a disconnect there between what the research might say, what even my experience has been like. I've seen running fix every single back pain person that's ever done it, but you're not willing to do that.
But that rolls us right into where we need to go, because we need to challenge the listener to not be misled by going into one thing. We're living in an information sensationalization type of place, and we get really tricked by the shiny object. We get tricked by the Instagram model. We get tricked by the influencer, and it takes us away from what people are looking for, which is a guide to how to get from point A to point B and how to get better. Let's discuss echo chambers. Your lighting looks really good now. Let's discuss
hold on. I think actually before you go there, along this concept, before we go to echo chambers, I do think it's important. I wanted to touch on this earlier, and I think this is a good setup that if you understand this concept, this is going to help us with the rest of this conversation. So from a recent book I read, Think Again by Adam Grant. All right.
Yes.
And recently, if you have gotten into a political, religious, fitness debate, we're going to say debate it to be polite. There's generally 3 types of personalities that engage in that. And this is where I want to challenge folks again to say, which of these 3 am I? And do I tend to be? Also, the person I'm speaking with, which of these 3 are they? And is that the type of person I want to engage with? So the 3 are scientist, who seeks the truth, not just to win, but actually wants to know what's the truth. So a question I throw out to some folks when I speak with them is, hey, do you prefer to be right or do you prefer to win? Because you can win by stating a false narrative. And by, again, you mentioned the shiny syndrome and shiny object syndrome. And there's ways to win an argument by being more dominant, by being a better debater, but you're not necessarily right. So when it comes to science, and I think we also want to define the scientific method at some point, but scientist is that first type of person that I strive to be, and I can't say I'm always that type of person, but I think that's what we're getting to with the way research is done and some of these
But I think
aspects.
that's what we're living too, though, Bo. We're definitely living, and I need to be right. Not I need to be right. I need to make my point.
Right. That's the second type of person, is a prosecutor. That, again, if you've been on any Facebook chat, you start talking politics or whatever, it becomes the person who wants you to move to their position so that they feel like they've won, right? So a prosecutor has to prove their case, and they're not going to deviate from their case. They have to show that they're not going to say, oh, you know what, maybe my defendant did kill that guy, or like the prosecutor, or they're not going to say, you know what, like, yeah, he's probably innocent, he's fine. They have to prove their case, and they have to do what they can to prove their case. And so the prosecutor is somebody who is hard to change their mind. So when you can identify that the person I'm speaking to is a prosecutor, whether we're talking, and I think we're gonna touch on vegan, vegetarian versus plant-based, animal-based. A lot of times when you engage in those conversations, those folks have their minds made up. And is it a waste of my time to try to speak to them about, here's what I've discovered and here's the way I think about that? And if you're, we're not gonna go into the minutia of all that right now.
Yes.
So we have scientist and prosecutor. And again, I think that alone is already a good setup for having any kind of debate with any kind of person, whether it's online, in person, friends. And the third person is a politician who is flexible with their position in order to fit in. So just like a politician might, they flip-flop, they're going to say, oh, like,
they're going to say what makes you happy in the end.
Right. That's right. Right. So I think everyone can probably think of an example of a politician who does that in their experience in their life. So we don't need to belabor that point. So I wanted to share that because I think that that scientist definition is pretty vital for us to, I think, come back to when we're talking about what the intention of research is. And this, again, ultimately, that consumer's guide, our mission is that when you're speaking to whoever your trainer is, somebody you're paying money to, or your nutritionist, And we went back and forth. Do you remember the girl's name from the video, the personal trainer who got sued for giving out?
Oh yeah, Brittney Dawn Fitness.
Yeah,
or AKA Brittney Davis.
Yeah. So, if anyone's not familiar with that story, I actually had not heard of it. I came across it this morning and I shared it with Corona here. And so I'm bringing that up because, again, if you're dealing with somebody and you're handing off money.
But wait a minute. You didn't give any information there. Brittney Davis is a woman who is being sued by people she's an influencer. She had a cute body. She was a cute woman. And what ended up basically happening, she was selling programs that she never produced a thing. So now the state of Texas is suing her for all the stuff she got. Go back to you, Bo.
Yeah, I was getting there. I was gonna explain it, but I was trying to set it up, but that's okay. So my point is, if you're handing off money to somebody who is now trying to improve your health, fitness, we put a lot of this trust in doctors. So somebody who's a medical doctor, I think the reason, and it's okay to put that trust in most doctors. We've touched on some of these things before. We're going to touch on some of them demand better from the medical system, from healthcare, from your personal trainer as well. We've touched physical therapists. We've done that one. So again, there's regulations in certain areas. This girl, Brittney, had no licensure, no certifications, no overseeing body. So that's one of the reasons she felt like she could just throw out whatever. Again, be in the beautiful world of capitalism, and anybody who paid her money, they kind of lost that money. She has not given that money back, and now it's gone to this point where it was over at least 4,500 people in a Facebook group that said, "Hey, like, she stole my money, and like she didn't provide me with the thing," and she wasn't willing to give the money back. She gave a really bad apology on YouTube that she read off of her phone like this, and like it was very disingenuous at the least. So the point of bringing her up again is, and going back to the doctors, medical doctors, physical therapists have licensing boards we have to answer to. So if you have an issue with someone like me, with a medical doctor, they have a license that they need to defend. So again, there's a lot of gray areas there and more nuance to this conversation, but I think it's important to understand that it's okay to challenge those folks. So if somebody, again, has some kind of claim, that's where we're trying to get back to. Okay, well, I've read this study that showed that blah blah blah. Where can we go with that? Can we have an intelligent conversation?
But I think that study's taking us a little bit further ahead. We're still staying here with this shiny object and the echo chambers that people live in. We're living in these echo chambers by the news we get. Everybody's the same. I don't care. There are some people who go outside and research other things out there, but there's a lot of people who just don't go outside of what they already know. And this Brittney Davis woman, the thing that's very, very interesting about her is that she looked good and she had a huge following. So people just bought from her. She had zero experience, folks. Bo just already said that to you. She had zero experience. But just because that's the way we do business in a lot of situations here on Instagram, we're taking the word of other people who also didn't research this woman. It's absolutely insanity when you think about it, which goes into what we're living in. If it bleeds, it leads. I mean, we talk about the worst of the worst. And we see it all over the place and all types of conversation. It's not just in one thing, but in fitness, if it's hot, it's great. We did the last episode with Aaron where it was booty, it was booty workouts. And it's crazy because there were certain people that she knew, she researched somebody on there and she knew that she was a trainer. But we're sitting here living this thing and we're passing off the money, as you said, Bo, to our echo chambers. What are your thoughts in terms of the quick take and all of that?
So that one of the biggest takeaways we want you guys to get from this episode, and if we go a little long, we're actually gonna, there's the timer here. If we go a little long, we're gonna turn this into 2, 3, 4 parts. So one of the biggest takeaways we want you to have is challenge the echo chamber, challenge and try to think as outside of that as possible. So when somebody makes a claim, and this is what science, coming back to the definition of a scientific method, it's nice. And I think a lot of us want that easy fix. And we're going to say, well, that person looks good. This seemed to work for them. Again, I'm going to use that example of like keto is a pretty popular thing. I know someone who did keto. They lost 30 pounds. I want to lose 30 pounds. I'm going to try keto. I challenge you to go a little deeper, find resources. Because again, I offer a free 15-minute call on all these things. And as people start asking me about, what do you think of knees over toes guy? And I'm doing a couple episodes coming up, guys. I want to dive into all these because I get these questions a lot. And so again, I'm happy to dissect and say like, well, look, here's the good things from that, and here's the bad things, and here's the marketing, and here's why like it sounds good. I'll give another quick example is chiropractors, and this is again that marketing versus the science. All right, and again, even the kind of short-term solutions are there, but most folks don't realize that they're actually really looking for a long-term solution, or
100%.
or it's too difficult to think about. So they say, again, my back hurts. Unfortunately, what I've seen in the research are studies that have shown that physical therapists are almost fourth on the list. There's medical doctors, chiropractors, acupuncturists, massage therapists, and then physical therapists, which is insane to me. But the research shows the outcomes, and that's really what we're coming back to, right? What actually of all those get the best outcomes? Physical therapists are the most cost-effective. And I'm not here to again, like proselytize and make the case, but I'm just going to say there's a disconnect again between client experience. So the client is saying, I'm coming in here with back pain, boom, boom, pop, pop. I walk out, I feel pretty good. But 3 days later, I'm still in the same boat. You never.
What did you fix, Bo?
Right. I'm not answering that. It's a trap. But that my point is, and I get it, I'm obviously getting a little heated on this topic because it's very personal to me, but I literally just addressed that with somebody. I was in the gym. We did a workout. He felt a little bit in his back after. He said, I got to go see my chiropractor. I was like, I can do the same thing. I can crack you, but I'm also going to look at what's going on and how we can then address it so that, because of the workout you just did was the thing that flared up your back, even though it's been there for a while. So there was something still lingering. And so I can make you feel better. And I threw him on my table at the gym right there. I did a little pop, pop, pop. I'm like, I'm not going to solve your problem by cracking your back. It feels a lot better. Awesome. I'm glad I took you from a 6 out of 10 pain to a 2 out of 10 or a 1 out of 10. It's still kind of there. I'm not looking to solve it because if you can solve it in one shot, everyone would be doing it. All right.
100%.
Again, the chiropractors are great. I'm not continuing. I don't want to keep picking on them, but
this goes into the point of nuance that you and I had the conversation. We had it before where there's really no nuance. If you're a chiropractor, you're fixing the pain. You come in, you pop up, you fix me, I'm good. So, we're not trying to come down on anybody, but what we are looking is that there are no easy solutions when you deal with something of this nature. And it's very, very easy for people to kind of sit in there and say, I need the answer right now. And it's not that easy. You deal with it all the time because you're a PT. Well, you're a physio. But with that being said, we're in this world of quick answers to our problems, and we always go to the shiny object. Always. That look at her. She's amazing. Or I went to go see that doctor. He's amazing. But that's not where it's all got to be.
I'll jump in because you on the personal training episode you brought up the example of J-Lo, Jennifer Lopez. You see her. She's in her 50s. She looks amazing. And then you're like, what's she doing so that I can do that? And there's just such a huge disconnect. As you said, you don't have her genetics. You don't have her money, most likely. If you do, maybe there's a way we can figure that out. But yeah, we don't know what she's truly doing. Is she doing other stuff on the side? Is she getting injections of, this new experimental whatever peptides and all these cool things that are coming out? So at the end of the day, for you out there as a consumer of this stuff, and you want to look like XYZ, whoever it is, it's important to, again, come back to question, how are we actually getting there? And like, I want to research. And again, some people do this with something like keto, but the consensus is pretty clear on something like keto from a scientific perspective. And before I pick on keto, we're talking about echo chambers. So I want to make sure we don't lose that thread. So echo chambers, again, if somebody only watches, and I'm gonna say it, only watches Fox News or only watches CNN or whichever version of that you say, and let's just say that's the right wing versus the left wing, whatever. And we get caught up in that from a political perspective. I'm just bringing it up. So if you're in one of those echo chambers, I don't think you're going to be here necessarily watching us. Is it useful to necessarily see what the other side is saying? I think that's useful.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, again, are we trying to be right or are we trying to win? So if you're trying to look for the true scientific answers, and everything in politics isn't necessarily scientific, but again, it's the understanding that you're getting sold to. It's the if it bleeds, it leads. It's all of those things that like we need to be able to take a step back from these headlines. We're also seeing it right now as we're recording this, the Ukrainian conflict with Russia and how Russia is controlling that narrative to their people. And I'm actually half of each, for those who aren't familiar. So I have a unique kind of perspective on all that. But again, it's how is this getting presented to us, and how do we get out of that echo chamber? Can we ask more critical questions? Can we think a little bit better? Can we look for less biased resources? And that's one of the big things with the echo chamber is I think we all have our biases. The more we can acknowledge those, the better. And then the resource that we're getting our information from has their own biases as well. So what are you selling, right? And I definitely could niche down, and I could go more into like, I'm stating again, like, do this one thing and you're going to never have back pain again. And I can come out and say that, and that certainty sells. And that's how you build the
Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
That's okay. But the certainty is what we're talking about, that shiny object syndrome. The more certain somebody is, the more attracted we are to them. That's the snake oil salesman, right? That's the, buy this thing that's in this bottle and you'll never have, whatever back pain again. And we're all attracted to that. We want that solution. I don't blame us for wanting that. However, this is where we're saying we demand better from you. We demand better from hopefully the claims that folks are making. And again, there is a little bit of a control and like the limit to the claims you make. So when it comes
100%.
to supplements, there's only a little bit of control, but you can kind of make whatever claims you want, like improves your metabolism and, decreases, it's heart healthy and all these labels.
But I'm going to that's all true what you're saying, but I just want to get back into the echo chamber just for a second. When you're in an echo chamber, there's nobody else in that echo chamber that's like you. And I say this all the time about people. You are unique to whatever's going to work with you in the physical fitness industry. So you have to find what works for you. We discussed it. That sign that you had with your friend was work with someone who specializes in you.
Yeah.
So we need to get, sometimes what you are listening to doesn't apply to you, and you're just not there to understand it when we're dealing in these echo chambers. And you just really, Bo's hit it dead on. But I just want you to realize we're not trying to move you from one way or another. We want you to understand there's a different way to find out what's best for you. And you have to treat yourself as an individual, not like the rest of the crew you're hanging with.
Right. And I think it'll be helpful, hopefully, for the listener to share maybe both of our concepts of how we gather this scientific concept and where we get our information from. Because for me, one of the biggest things that I just got triggered from what you just said is a lot of the folks I listen to have changed their mind. They're open to changing their mind as the science changes, because that's what science is. And in fact, we have to kind of continue to question everything, whether, again, like the very controversial thing going on recently about vaccines, the COVID vaccine. We're not going to go down that rabbit hole, but it's someone like, I'm going to throw out Rob Wolf, who has his very strong political beliefs as well. We're not going to talk about that, but he's one of the bigger nutrition influencers that I've seen in at least my space. Not everyone's going to have heard of him. He's written 2 books, and his second book and his first book are pretty different. They have some similarities, but the second book is an evolution, as it should be. And since he's actually written that second book, which I think was around 2015, he has since even changed a lot of his narrative and the way he thinks about different parts of the science and what he recommends and what he talks about. And so coming back to it, I think that when you have gurus, when you have experts, and that's what we should be looking for. And again, we hope to be that resource for somebody, for you, the listener out there, and to be able to share with your friends and loved ones. So that's a huge part of the science is the more certainty you speak with, the more that's going to sell, but the more likely that's bullshit. And
100%.
It's hard to have strong certainty about anything. Like it's incredible. Another person I listen to is Andrew Huberman, whose podcast is Huberman Lab, and he is a bit of an expert. He's a professor of ophthalmology and neurobiology. So when he says something about the way that our brain develops or that our eyes work and that the light that we need and how that affects hormones, like I'm pretty sure he's coming from and providing the most up-to-date data, because he has to be teaching that. He's
100%.
He probably is a good resource for that. So, and then I can take him and listen to someone else and see if they jive or they agree. And maybe there is a little bit of a difference in what they're recommending or what they're saying. And for me, the same thing with books, right? I love reading books. And if I hear 5 different people recommend the same book, I'm going to be like, that's a book I should probably read, because these are all people I respect and have earned a little bit of my trust. So that's what I would challenge you guys to do. Not just have one guru, as easy as that is, as much as possible, expand your network of people you're listening to, your kind of horizons there.
Well, all I'm going to say is this to you in terms of that is that we really need to listen to both sides. You need to come to an understanding of what works for you. That's the biggest thing I really wanted the listener to take away from this research is that you got to find out what works for you, and what works for you doesn't work for everybody. It's that simple. But you're dead on. I mean, we could go on and on about books. We could go on and on about all these different topics. But when it all comes right back down to, you need to find out what's going to work for you the most and the most efficiently.
And that takes us to the concept of research, right? So,
yes.
And back to that evidence-based practice model of the triad, because again, we'll use you, Corona, as an example. We're going to say 50-year-old Cuban guy who's been a personal trainer and been into fitness for the majority of your life, right? Whether you want to say ex-athlete or current athlete or however we're going to define it. But the point is, any study you're going to look at that says, again, red meat causes cancer, probably doesn't know your cholesterol profile, your genetic history, what your familial history is, all these things. So again, it's going to be hard to utilize that information. However, we do need to figure out, where does research fit in? And if you have a study of 100,000 people done over 10 years, and it's an observational study that shows that, again, however they did it, and again, we want to talk about and get into the way studies are done. But at the end of the day, if there's a study that comes out or a headline that comes out, then I'm going to keep picking on this red meat causes cancer thing, because it's a narrative that, again, has a lot of financial interest, that, again, does not tell the whole story. When we talk about meat, for instance, some of the studies I've seen, and these big, powerful studies that make headlines, they're including pepperoni, they're including Big Mac's pepperoni pizza as meat. And again, there's all these aspects to it, and some of the limitations of research is something else we want to definitely highlight. So our big first takeaway was, right, avoid those echo chambers, diversify your sources,
and your reading list.
Yeah.
Now the question here is, we can go into the nutrition research we can go into that, or we could just hold that for the next one. That's up to you, Dr. Bone, what you want to do with it.
Because we want to keep this one a little bit shorter. We definitely want to do some parts 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 to this. But I do want to touch on some ways to think better about research, right? Because we talked about, and even my concept that I'm trying to throw out, I just threw out a few names: Rob Wolf, Andrew Huberman. Expert opinion is one of the lowest forms of evidence. So I'm going to pull up our hierarchy of research here, of evidence. So if you're listening on the podcast format, you're not going to be able to see this, but we should have a link to it somewhere. So you can see expert opinion is actually the lowest form of quality of evidence. It's at the very bottom of the pyramid. Okay.
Now, can we stop right there for a second? When we're looking at expert opinion, you don't know a lot of these times what's behind that expert opinion, where the people are getting their stuff. That's one of the reasons why that's at the bottom. Am I correct with that, both? Because
there's going to be tons of biases, and also, I mean, aside from that human nature side of it and the bias side of it, I think one of the reasons it's at the absolute lowest level is when it comes to actual research studies. It's much more powerful to take a look at all these levels that we're going up, and again, let's jump all the way to the highest level, the systematic reviews, which is looking at. Let's say I just looked at a video about intermittent fasting, another very popular topic. So I just went into PubMed. So, and again, if you ever want to look at some real studies, you go to PubMed, which is the government's kind of data national registry of all these research studies. It's the gold standard for research. So I go into PubMed and I type in intermittent fasting, and it comes out with over 277,000 studies that have that term intermittent fasting in it. Now you can narrow that down by making sure it's in the title, or making sure those two words are used exactly together, or all these little things. You can add other things, but the systematic review would then say, let's take 100 of these studies, the top studies we can out of those 277,000, and pool them, and then look at them and try to write an article, a review based on all that. And so that's the reason it's at its highest point. And again, there also should be factoring in, and you have to trust that when they're putting that together, they're saying, hey, like these 30 studies were only case reports, which you can see is the second lowest level there. So again, the expert opinion is just somebody talking, and again, in terms of the validity of anyone's expert opinion, it should be taken with a significant grain of salt based on that hierarchy. So anyway, so that's the hierarchy. Again, I'd love to dive much further into each of these aspects, but hopefully that makes sense. Unless you want to point out anything here on this
no,
pyramid.
I want. There's a key part of this pyramid. I think that if you can't see it, go check us out on at YouTube. There's that line on the side of the pyramid, which is there's only two words: unfiltered information and filtered information. So unfiltered information is my opinion. Filtered information goes back to all the reviews you were talking about, and there's something to back that up. Now, I want to say this so people don't get this wrong. That opinion that you're looking at the top can change as more information comes on. They might change their opinion, and that's part of the nuance of science. And I think we've lost that when we're looking at people and we're talking to people and we're giving opinion, people are like, oh, Judge John Johnson, he's the greatest, and that he's unfiltered. You need to go to where we can get the information, understand that you can go back and look and find the studies to help you support that information. But
yep.
So let's wrap this up today.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we'll come back, we'll pick up from the hierarchy of evidence here, and we'll start off with the nutrition research, the science. And I definitely want to talk about game changers.
Oh yeah. So before we'll leave that little promo for folks. If they've seen the movie, feature, documentary, whatever you want to call it, Game Changers, which was produced by James Cameron, and makes an argument for plant-based nutrition. Let's just leave it at that. If you've seen it, we'd love to hear your inputs on that before we do our episode. If you want to call in when we're going live next, which we'll put that out on our channels here soon. If you haven't seen it, we'd love for you guys to check it out. And again, it's an interesting piece of whatever you want to call it, cinematic.
No spoilers. Listen, go check it out. We want your opinion. First and foremost, we want your opinion. We want to hear what you think about it. We've both seen it. It's interesting. So
there's a lot of takeaways and a lot of things that we're talking back to our kind of concepts and points. We are going to cut it off, but I just wanted to leave. We wanted to jump to red flags, and I think in terms of getting a little bit more from this episode, I want folks before we sign off to get at least one or two of the red flags that we have talked about in our pre-recording. So Corona, I'm going to ask you for one or two of your red flags that we can give these guys before we go.
My number one red flag is someone who gives you absolute certainty in anything that they're talking about. It's 100%. It's going to happen. It's totally going to happen. Don't worry about it. I know what I'm talking about. That right there, anytime that somebody comes at you with such unbelievable amount of certainty, it's usually not true. And I hate to say that way. And listen, I so want to believe into something so easy would come out and it'd be very, very easy. But let's not get duped. Let's not get faked out or Jedi mind tricked by someone's certainty, because usually it's not true. That's my number one red flag.
Awesome. I'm gonna make the second one being anyone who's used the term proves. So this study proves that, and again that ties into the certainty piece, but just that language shows a lack of understanding of how science works, because no study, no matter how strong, even if it has a billion people, we could even look at the let's talk about the vaccine and the COVID thing. Like, oh, we've proven that this thing is safe up to a certain, and there's all sorts of metrics. Proves is just a term that shows that you're probably not dealing with someone with the most scientific background, because, and I'm sure there's always exceptions to all these things, but anytime somebody comes out with new study proves that taking protein shakes, improves your muscle mass, blah, 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 whatever it is. It's really important. And this is the last thing I want to throw out. This isn't necessarily a red flag. It's a huge problem with research that is correlation does not equal causation.
Yeah.
Right. So a lot of studies, again, even if they look at something and they say, oh, we studied 1,000 people and we saw a correlation, or we saw that when people had, you know, the city that they lived in, the stork population was increased. We also saw in that same time period that babies, the birth rate was higher. So now, are we saying that storks bring babies? And there's a lot of funny examples of this, of like Nicolas Cage films with people drowning in a pool. There's all these random correlations, obviously have nothing to do with a causation. And again, it's really interesting to see some of that stuff. But I do want to, you know, throw that out there as there's a lot of nuance and, again, difficulty and limitations to research, but there's also really cool stuff in there. The last thing I want to say is, and I'm going to plug my other podcast, Bono Stuff, where I just had a physical therapy buddy of mine whose brand is PT Pint Cast, as in they have a pint, you know, talk conversations over a pint here. And he actually works near you, buddy, in Mount Sinai.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, right there on the Upper East Side. He just took a job there recently, his dream job of being a science communicator. So they're doing all this research there. And basically they have to say, like, how do we communicate that we just found this device that can, you know, tell people's whatever, insulin, blood sugar, blah, blah, blah. And what do they do with that? And it's very complicated, especially if you were ever to open up a research study. And again, I get bored with that stuff. I love it, but I also get bored with it because it's very dry. It can be very dry, and it can be just hard to kind of decipher exactly what we take out of that. So he is a science communicator, but I think that's the kind of stuff we should be looking for. That's the kind of stuff where we say, well, like, what does this mean? How do we hear and understand things better? If that's kind of your mission, your goal, you know, I think there's some really interesting stuff there. I encourage you guys to go check out that episode. I'll have a link somewhere.
Now, listen, guys. We want you to come back, listen to the next half of this, well, the next quarter of it possibly, and bring questions, because this is such an interesting topic that I just can't wait to keep diving in deeper and deeper into it. Do me another favor, go check out Game Changers so we can have a really deep conversation about that also. With that being said, you know, we at Demand Better want you to always know that we're here for you, and we want you to demand better for yourself. We want you to demand better from us, and we want you to have a good day.
I hope I hope y'all got 1% better, and we didn't blind you with too much science today, hopefully.
Yo, take
or
care,
Corona's
y'all.
not going to blind you with his big smile. $1 million smile there. Love it. All right. See y'all next time.